2, 3. You see the magic I work here, folks. I bring 3 people into the chat with me. Look at these 2 guys. Look at these 2 heathens of the night. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of This Uncanny Earth. Actually, there's something I want to talk to you about after the show about some Angel's Envy and a Crown Royal Select Barrel that I just saw off of the Ohio liquor store site because I was perusing to check and see what was coming out.
Not to interrupt you, but I'm going to interrupt you to say I love your hairstyle. Nice hairdo.
Bro, it's too hot. Like, I don't care about anything else. It's hot. It's been hot. It's 92 degrees in Ohio today. The hair goes up. The hair goes up. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about anybody's opinion. It's hot.
No, you look like a little samurai.
Anybody that knows me knows how my hair is, especially my my co-host. He's been there when I've had the longest of hairs. I'm not playing no more. It's too hot. My co-host knows it's hot. It's been hot for the past week now. It's just been nothing but 90s, high 80s, 90-degree temperatures, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't care what people think. I don't care. It's too hot. It's too hot. That's too hot. So, anyways, after the show, Spider, we'll discuss something. We can go in on that Angel's Envy because I still have yet to try it.
Oh, you're gonna be jealous of me. It's only 83 over here.
Hey, we ain't got time for that. It's Ohio temperatures over here. We doing the 90s. I know my man over there. He probably hot as Satan's butt.
See, James agrees with me.
I've had a fever the last few days actually because I had a cold, so. I'm extra sweaty. I'm gonna sound kind of like for the evening, so I'm probably not gonna talk as much as I usually would.
Now, normally, I would say you always look that way, but I am somewhat concerned, not too much, because that's what we do around here. But I was gonna say, yeah, you're looking a little peckish, if I may say.
Yeah.
What's up, Hoff? What's good, man? How you feeling though? You little cold and all that?
Yeah, it's just a cold. We probably picked up something while we were out watching the festivities like a week ago because we took my daughter to a festival and all kinds of people running around. So she picked up something.
Yeah.
She gave it to her mother, and then a couple days after they both have it, I started picking it up. So
been there. Yeah. Been there. What festival did you go to?
That was the Cleveland Irish Festival.
I saw your little corned beef joint. I saw the corned beef.
Oh yeah, I ate far too much food.
I was like, dang, I wish I could have some corned beef.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was very good. It was too much, but it was good. And I didn't have to eat anything else the rest of the day, except I snacked on some fries that they had gotten later on.
Well, I think when you go to places like that, I think that is the end goal. Yeah, it's cool to see the celebrations, but what do you have that I can eat? Because I'm not going to these things if food is not provided. I'm not like, yeah, we'll hang out for a few hours in the hot sun. No, I need something that's going to make my mouth water. I need something of sustenance, but I need it to be good sustenance. And especially if you're going to a Irish festival, you need to get hit with all the good stuff. So I'm glad you had a good time. It sucks that you're sick, but I completely understand. I've been down that pathway. It is because we are always the last ones to get sick. That's how it always works.
Yeah,
always works.
That's what happens.
There's stuff going around over here too. Not gonna say too much though.
It's still a busy few weeks though, so I still got stuff to do, and I'm just gonna have to grumble through it.
I'm just very proud of my immune system. That's all I can say.
So tell me, Spider, what do you got coming up?
Well, I know we have I have SummerSlam coming up over the weekend.
I almost want to take you off of here just for saying that on stream.
Well, considering if I'm still feeling like this, I won't be able to enjoy it a lot. So there you go. There's your poetic justice.
You're still gonna go.
Yeah, because you don't.
To be fair, I went to a Tool concert with strep throat.
Yeah,
some years back when I was young. I'm like, I'm not gonna miss it. I'm not gonna miss this concert.
Yeah, this is like a once in a forever kind of thing. Like it's not often you go to something like this, and so we got that coming up, and then at the end of the month we got Cleveland Taco Fest. Ooh yeah, Cleveland Taco Fest. So that's looking good too. I missed it. Well, you garbled for a minute there.
Or maybe your ears need cleaned out, old man.
My ears also need to be cleaned out.
I said, are you going to spill it on somebody's carpet?
If they got carpet samples up there, I will spill the tacos. Yeah.
That'd be a terrible time to have a carpet sample fest right next to Cleveland Taco
Yeah.
Fest.
Oh,
if
look,
you're gonna
right
be
next
there.
door, they're sampling carpet swaths. Oh, let me
Berber.
take my taco over there. Oops.
That's Berber. It's an industry.
So,
Okay.
yeah, that's gonna be my month.
Okay. You got any music coming up? You got any shows coming up?
I don't have any more shows that I'm performing at in the near future. I mean, who knows? I mean, things could always change, but I'm not really thinking too much of it. That was kind of like a one-off return to form. So everybody who missed it, you missed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard, I know you put your all into it. I've been to your shows before, and even if there's one person or there's 30 people,
Mhm.
you're still going to show up, and that's an admirable trait, and I respect it because I'm the same way with my speaking. If 5 people show up, 5 people show up. You getting the same presentation that if I got to speak in front of 500 people, you're getting the same presentation. So that's you'll get that same amplified
honorable
sound.
way.
You're gonna get all that. You're gonna get all that because I'm gonna bring my best every time I'm out. I'm representing the brand. I'm representing us, and you can't be slacking on your macking. Can't be slacking on your macking, gentlemen.
While
Today,
we're
go ahead.
before you get started, while we were talking like just
Steve.
opening business, we should make sure to remind everybody about somebody's series.
Oh yeah,
yes.
yeah. I don't know whose bright idea this was to give this one here, a show. It was not mine. I was not told this. It
I
was
think
just
it was
sitting with,
my
hey,
idea.
Steven's gonna do a show, and I was like, is that okay? Are we financing this? Are we paying him for this? Luckily, we
Oh,
don't
I
have
haven't
to pay
paid
him at
anything
all.
into anything, so
I don't pay anything in anything either yet. Soon enough.
Yeah.
Steven, what do you got coming up this Saturday on the interns?
The interns, Uncanny Oddities from Around the Earth.
That's a lot.
Wait, I messed up my own name. Dang, let me try that again. The interns, Oddities from Around the World. That's what it was. Dang, can't be forgetting the name of my own show. But it's going to be this Saturday at around 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we're going to go ahead and finish up the second half of Tsukima Onna. And then from there, the week after that, we're going to do yokai. And then we'll do like a global story, like maybe a couple of news updates and a little global topic that applies to everywhere across the globe. Right now, I'm kind of leaning towards luck. And then we'll go to a different culture after that.
Okay. Well, be sure to check out our boy Steven on the interns oddities.
Better go ahead and catch it before it gets canceled.
And go ahead and you better watch it now because who knows? Maybe the government's been watching us for too long.
It's like a Netflix series. It's gonna get like 2 seasons, and then we're gonna be like, oh yeah, right before you're done, like, oh yeah, we're filming the 3rd season. Oh, it's done.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was actually part of the Project Monarch, so I'm just waiting to hear that secret code phrase.
Luck. James wants to know what you mean by luck.
Oh, like good luck versus bad luck and karma, and like what might influence someone's luck, and if what if luck might even be a scientific thing, or if it's more of a philosophical thing, and if you believe it, if it even exists or not.
So gentlemen, how are we feeling about tonight's show?
Good.
Okay, intern, since you want to be at the forefront of everything, why don't you go ahead and start us off with your first thing, and then I'll go ahead and take over and lead us into something really interesting that I saw today.
So if you're on our Facebook group, I made a teaser earlier today, and I think I'll start off with that. So do you remember when the government created LSD for us? Wasn't that a wonderful time? Because we remember.
You gonna bring up some Timothy Leary for us? You gonna bring us some Timothy Leary for us?
MK Ultra. So MK Ultra was created in mind. They were trying to find a truth serum, but or truth serum or mind control is what they really wanted. And they were mixing some chemicals together in the lab and testing them. And they ended up mixing some weird chemicals together, and it gave them some pretty weird effects. And later on, it became known as LSD. and they were like, "Hey, this is some pretty, good stuff. Let's see if we can use this to mind control people into telling us their state secrets." And so they started spiking people without their knowledge with LSD. And some people got angry about it. Eventually someone blew the whistle on it. It all came out. And I think I'll let Rob go from there. If you want to tell us some more about it.
What were you saying?
Who, me?
Yes. What did you just say?
Oh, I was saying we're going to let you go from there. And if you want to tell us some more about it. And I was at the part where I was talking about how there was a whistleblower that came out and told everyone what was going on and stopped it all.
So, I did not plan for that one, but it's okay.
Oh,
No, you're good. You're good.
I didn't even take notes, honestly. I'm just going from what I remember.
I have a challenge, though. I have a challenge. Can you pronounce the 3 words that make up LSD?
Oh,
Isn't
no.
It's lysergic. Isn't it lysergic?
I'm going to mute, and then I'm going to see if I can find it, and then I'm going to try to read it.
It's lysergic. Damn it.
You got that right. You got that right. The second's the easiest one because it's a common word.
Yeah, it's lysergic acid diethylamide.
That's probably pretty close.
Diethylamide. Yeah, I think
diethylamide.
That's
lysergic acid diethylamide.
That's my main contribution, making you guys pronounce unpronounceable words.
Oh, yeah, let me try again. Lysergic acid diethylamide. There we go. I did it easily that time.
So for any of you that know about LSD, and I will plead the fifth on this one, it's a very interesting drug in that it doesn't necessarily kill your brain cells as it changes them, it morphs them, so to speak. It does different things to them. So the government was exposing people to LSD to test different avenues of if they could in fact control via LSD. And Timothy Leary, I want to say it was Timothy Leary. Let me make sure I got the last name right, but I'm almost damn near positive. Timothy Leary. Yeah. So yeah, Timothy Leary was one of like, he is like the advocate for psychedelic drugs, but he was also famous for being a psychologist, and he worked in tandem with the government supposedly to push LSD out to the masses. A lot of it was during that, the heyday of the flower power era, where drugs were like, people always did drugs. Let's get that out of there, because it's not even that. It was, I've been to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, and they have these giant bottles. And me being me and being hilarious, we went to the pharmacy. Obviously, no, it's not a running pharmacy, but the one guy described having it was sativa, alcohol, morphine, codeine, lithium, and I think a couple other things. And I was like, "Are you guys giving out free samples?" And it got some chuckling. Some chuckling went down in the tour group. There was some laughter. I was kind of the hit right there. I was like, "Oh, that guy's hilarious." They probably hear it all the time when they come through, but it doesn't matter. I was funny for that time period, and that's all that mattered. So I'll have you know. Anyways, with LSD, what it does is that your brain, it essentially, it almost reminds me of what is it? What does Joe Rogan like to do all the time? What is it? DMT. But it's not as psychedelic hallucination inducing as DMT is. LSD works just a tad bit different. It has been said to open up different pathways in the brain and this, that, and the third, and interdimensional beings and stuff like that.
Hadn't heard
but
that part.
Yeah, LSD is an interesting aspect, very interesting. And, there's been people that put it in their eyes, droppers. They use droppers to put on their tongues, on sugar cubes, on blotter paper, gel, all that. I'm quite well versed in LSD. It's a fascinating subject, because what it does is it writes some of the chemicals that are like people that have ADHD and people that have like PTSD, microdosing that kind of stuff is actually good for the brain. Not like doing it all the time, but like microdosing it in small quantities actually increases cognitive functions. And this has
It's
been different
supposed
studies been
to
done.
it's
And
supposed to
yeah,
like alter the neuron pathways
yep,
in either subtle or dramatic ways
yep.
depending on how you use it, which is similar to more natural things that you get, like Native American stuff like the peyote,
Or
and
like
then the
ayahuasca, like
yeah, and
James is talking about.
there's something that they use in Australia that the Aborigines would use for the walkabout,
Oh yeah,
vision
yeah.
quest kind of thing. It might be one of the ones we already mentioned, but my brain's kind of foggy, so I don't remember
Oh,
which
you're good.
one. But
You got sick brain. I get it.
anything that's basically a psychedelic, whether it's chemical or natural, tends to kind of rewrite parts of the brain. It's mostly temporary, depending, but if you use it for your entire life, you can make permanent changes.
And sometimes permanent damage,
Yeah.
depending on the amount that you're partaking in. You know, it's not like marijuana where if you just smoke too much, you end up just in a really bad
Fiend.
paranoid state, but you're not going to be forever high. It doesn't work like that. But LSD does work like that. If you take too much of it because it's chemically altering, like you said, your neural pathways. And so at some point, those neural pathways get altered to a point they can't be fixed. So you're kind of like Timothy Leary, like toward the end, I believe he's dead now, but in his later years, you could tell that he had done way too much LSD. Just you could just tell. Like you know, if you've ever met a person that's just they call them fried or burnt, you could tell.
Yeah.
Like there's just something that's not the same in their brain that it used to be. Usually it's a very much lack of concentration because they're always just spaced out so they can't really take in any new information because they have done so many things that their brain is basically mush. The neural pathways have changed to a point where if they're on the drug, they are the only time they're focused. So that was, but that wasn't the government's job and or what it wanted to do. It wanted to see if LSD worked in changing people to be loyal to them, the government, the people in charge. So the MK Ultra aspect was part of that, being able to take LSD and then being like, okay, we're gonna give you this drug, but then we're going to subliminally show you things to test and see if your loyalty to us increases or decreases. Well, obviously that didn't work because LSD doesn't work like that, and they were not able to form their LSD super soldiers, as I like to call them, where they'd just be mindless drones that would follow because LSD doesn't work like that. LSD does its thing by going inside of your mental subconscious, pulling stuff from your subconscious, as well as pulling from your surroundings. So if your subconscious is saying one thing, but your surroundings are saying another, you're basically going to kind of go into a psychosis. You're going to basically, the best way I can put it is freak out. That's it. You're going to have a bad trip, as the kids like to say. You know, you're not going to enjoy it.
One of the things that they wanted to do was replicate and improve upon an ancient kind of ritual that they used to do in the Middle East. And you know where this is from
Yeah,
because it's the basis of a popular series of games that you enjoy.
100%.
The assassins, the originals, not
Yeah.
like I know it's a word that gets used a lot all over the place, but they used to use the hashish.
Yep.
They were given it by um, the guy who was in charge of their order, and he would give it to them. They'd fall asleep, and they'd wake up in this garden that he had set up specifically for them to enjoy while on the drug. And then when they'd fall asleep again, it would wear off. They'd be back wherever he wanted, and he'd say, "Hey, I can give you this, and you can go back there anytime you want if you go do these things I need you to do." So this is kind of a modern program of that without having to provide them with a separate space and without having to give them extra perks. They wanted the drug to do everything on its own, um, without having to worry about the expense
Bribery.
of the other things.
And that's interesting as we're talking about authority, because authority is the key role in this. And we're going to get into a little experiment that was done, and we're talking about human experimentation, but not all human experimentation is of a medical variety. Some of it is of a psychological variety. And we're getting into what is known as the Milgram experiment. And for those of you who follow me on the Facebook, you'll see that I posted the documentary, and it was an old one. It's from like, it's black and white, so I know it's older. In this experiment, there were two participants. There was the teacher and there was the learner. Now, the teacher had a list of words that the learner had to memorize. So the teacher would read off 4 words, and there was a word that the learner had to memorize and say it back to them. If the learner got it wrong, the teacher administered a shock, ranging from, I believe they started off at 90 volts all the way up to 450 volts. The learner beforehand told the teacher that they had a heart condition. Anybody that knows about electricity and hearts, you can go from there. Resuscitation, they use a defibrillator that basically shocks the heart back to pumping again. But on a bad heart, too much electricity pretty much fries it. That's it. You're dead. So the instructor gives the instructions to do this. Well, the teacher would start, and every time they got it wrong, you got a shock. Well, once it got into the 190 to 200 range, the learner would scream out in pain, and each time the shock was given in higher voltages, the learner would scream louder. And then it got to a point where the learner would say, "Hey, let me out. I don't want to do this anymore. My heart's starting to mess up." And the instructor would tell the teacher to continue. And the teacher would say, "Well, I don't want to." And they said, "You had to. It's part of the experiment." And so some of these people literally stopped. Once it got to a point where, hey, I'm not going to hurt another human being, they would quit. Essentially, they'd say, I don't care about your experiment. And then they would show that the learner himself was, in fact, not being shocked at all. What they had done was they took a playback tape recorder, the big ones like you see in the old times, had the plastic reels, and it would play off of that. And they would play the sounds of a man screaming. And what they would do is they would tie that in to each shock button that was pushed. Now, the shock machine was very real, but nobody was attached to it. The learner got up because the learner was part of the experiment as well. So the only one that was really not part of the experiment was the teacher. The instructor, the learner, those around him were all part of that experiment. Now, the interesting aspect of this is the parameters that were set regarding the Milgram experiment. The parameters that were set varied. The first set, the teacher and learner were separate from each other. They couldn't hear each other. They couldn't see each other. For all they know, that person was a million miles away. It was easier to administer the shocks knowing that they're out of sight, out of mind. They don't hear these people screaming. They don't hear these people yelling. They're just, there's and they would hit a switch.
All they know.
It's a button, and they're pushing a button, then a number would light up 1 through 4. And then from there, the second set, the learner could only beat on the walls. So they're in pain. They're pounding on the walls. Hello, Apple. Hello. Welcome. Hello, Hoff.
A quick aside on that is that
Yes.
experiment was also the basis for a series of novels that was adapted to a movie some years ago. I don't know if the movie was any good, but the novels were called Ender's Game.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like the opposite of that, where they were training these kids who were super smart. They told them they were in training simulations against this invading alien force.
Yeah.
And when the book ended, you found out that during all of this training, they were actually remote control piloting the human fleets and decimating the aliens. And
Spoiler
they basically
alert.
committed. Well, yeah, I mean, the book's been out.
Well, I mean, the book and the movie are
it gets
older.
more in depth than all what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
So people are going to enjoy it, I think. But at the end, it's basically like they committed genocide against this alien invading fleet.
Yeah.
And they didn't know it until it was done, and it messed them up like after the fact. But they'd won, so the government was like, "Hey, you did your job," but they're messed up for life now. So interesting use of the experiment.
I have one as well. while we're doing pop culture, The Simpsons. They have done everything. The Simpsons even did this. They went to it was like a family therapy session with this dude named Dr. Monroe, who was a therapist in the show, and he had them do what he called shock therapy. And they were like, okay, every time one
I
of your
remember
family
this.
members upsets you,
It's an old one.
you just shock them. You're going to
Yeah,
shock them.
and they just went
Push this
around like
button.
zapping
Yeah.
each other.
And they
Yeah.
would just keep doing it and doing it. And I've also countless times I have heard stories just like this countless times, and like horror stories and creepypastas, and seen stuff like this in horror movies and stuff. So it's like very common, but I had never actually known what it was called.
Mammoth. Mammoth is
Yep.
here. What's up, Mammoth? Yeah,
That as well.
Yeah, that is. I didn't think about that one, but yeah,
Although that was mostly for Bill Murray's character's enjoyment because he liked picking on people.
he did. He did. So the second set of parameters, the learner and the teacher, or I'm sorry, the third set of parameters, both the learner and the teacher could hear one another, but were separated by a wall. And that was where they got a lot of the footage for the documentary. That was the third parameter. So once it was in sight, or once it was in mind, they were more reluctant to continue the test. They had more compassion for the human being because they realize there's a human being on the other side of this wall and I'm killing them. Essentially, they were killing him. There was a gentleman that was about 20 minutes in and 20 minutes into the documentary, and he was like, hey, man, you better go check on him. But he could not refuse authority. He had to keep going. And so he got all the way up to 450 volts. I think he made it to like 200 something. And the guy said, I'm not going to answer anymore. I'm not going to do it. And then he just stopped answering. But as the voltage continued, the guy himself, the teacher, was like, hey, man, you need to answer. You got to answer. Come on, answer. Answer. He was still concerned, but he wasn't concerned enough to stop the experiment. So he keeps going until he finally finds out. And it's like, man, some people. But in the fourth set of the parameters, they move the teacher and the learner in the same room within eyesight of one another, maybe a few feet apart. So now they can put a face to the trauma that they're inflicting or the pain that they're inflicting on another human being. Well, the final and fifth parameter was that there was a shock plate. And every time the learner got a question wrong, he had to put his hand on the shock plate. And if he didn't do it, the teacher had to forcibly put his hand on that shock plate. Now, I didn't get a lot of the results of that one, but 50% in the third parameter continued well past the responding point. They said Yale, because they I believe this came out of Yale, said that only about 3/10. So for every 10 people, only 3 people are going to go ahead, and this blew past that. So 50% of people in that regard said, hey, I got to keep going, because they couldn't say no. They tried a very meager try, but they were always overridden by the instructor. And the instructor was very much like, hey,
authority.
The experiment has to go on. It doesn't matter. And at one point during the 20-minute guy, the instructor actually says, I am responsible for that man's life, not you. And that is when the other guy was able to say, okay, he overrode that part in his brain, the sympathy aspect, and he was able to just push down, shock the dude, and he kept going. He kept going all the way to 450. And then if the guy subsequently got it wrong after that, he was always to shock him with 450. It's 450, 450, 450. And so they all learned that that wasn't the case. The one guy was cool. He was like, you can have your money back. I'm not going to hurt that man in there. It's not going to happen. So he got up and he was about to leave. But then they said, hey, that's not the case. This is what happened. But the interesting aspect of this is that there were times when the instructor called in, said, hey, this is what you got to do. And it was easier to object to that. They could just get up, leave. Other times it was off of a tape recording. So that's even easier to leave, because what are you going to do? The tape recorder's not going to talk back. Get up and leave. The third time, they were actually in the room itself. And that is when the uptick in the continuance of said experiment increased because they were in the same room. Just like the compassion increased when the person was in the same room, even more so when they were forced to put the hand onto the shock plate itself. They were forced to kind of do that, and they didn't care for it. Now, the experiment was done at Yale first, because when you think of Yale and you go to a university, it's prestigious. Why would they do something like this if not for a scientific backing? There can't be any harm in this, right? It's a university study. They wouldn't do that. But then they moved it to a building in Bridgeport, a dilapidated warehouse building. But they noticed that this did little in swaying the experiment itself. So what we see here is we see people that won't defy authority. And I think that's a good lesson for a lot of like Nazi Germany times, a lot of Berlin Wall times, a lot of Cuban times, a lot of just dictator-esque eras of, well, I was only doing my job, or I didn't want to defy authority. But you had other people there that were ready to defy authority. They're ready to say, no, we're not going to do that. But 50% of them said that they would continue. And you have to think today, today, I think that it would probably be increased. I think people are a little more selfish in this day and age, and I think you would see up to 65 to 70% of people would probably go well past the responding point, given the parameters set. I don't know. I would need to
Now,
see another
without
case study.
without making any details that are get our video taken off of YouTube, a great example of this was a lot of the events that happened over the last 3 or 4 years.
Agreed.
That whole situation was very clearly, you need to follow the rules. This many people are following the rules. If you're not following the rules,
Yeah.
you're gonna not be listened to. You're not going to be able to work. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. And there was a lot of that. And a lot of that is kind of being reversed now after the fact. Again, not to go into any sort of details because we're trying to not get booted.
I don't want to get hit again.
A lot of that is now going through the courts and things are a little bit different. So it is the problem with that is a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's a lot easier to apologize after the fact and then just move on rather than just not do it when it comes through. So, and that's where you get the things like, oh, I was just doing what I was told. I thought that they were right, so I would just believe that that's what I was supposed to do. And that's really the core of the experiment.
And we have to ask ourselves where we would fall in that regard. And I want to point something out before I continue that line of reasoning. The Stanford Prison Experiment coincides with this experiment. Yes. Now, the Stanford Prison Experiment that was carried out on between August 15th and August 21st in 1971 for some of you, not 2071. All right. Yes, we're old folks. Stop it. It was led by psychology professor Philip G. Zimbardo, and he recruited Stanford students via a local newspaper, and 24 students were selected to be prisoners and guards.
I've heard of this one.
Yeah, this is one of the most famous experiments that I remember reading and taking psychology at university. But and it showed how
they were brutal, weren't they?
Yeah, it was bad. They were beating them. They were beating the inmates, starving them. It was a whole series of events because they wanted to see how far people would go
with authority.
With authority, which is very interesting. Oh no! I was going to leave the Stanford for another time because I felt like the Milford one was, or the Milgram. Sorry, not the Milford. The Milgram one was like between the two because I was thinking about doing both. And I was thinking about doing the Stanford one, but I felt like the Milgram one was more
less well known.
That, and I think that it is it's a way to show how people go, how far people will go without having to touch them until you get to the fifth parameter where you had to forcefully put the hand on the thing. But the other four parameters show you how far people are willing to go if they don't know a person is there. But I remember reading I didn't know about the Milgram. That was new to me. The Milgram one was brand new. I didn't know about that. This was something I learned today. So I'm very, very novice at it. But the Stanford Prison Experiment, I knew about it. I didn't know the name. but I had heard about this a long time ago. And yeah, they they did some pretty horrible things actually. They because if you have if they give you the ability to make you think that you are better, you might have. And we've talked a lot, so you might have. If you give the people the ability to lord themselves over people, you're and with no checks and balances to keep those people in place from overstepping boundaries, they're going to 100% of the time overstep boundaries when they can look at people as less than human beings. It's easy to treat people terribly when you don't think of them as being equal to you. You know, this is why we had Nazi Germany. This is why we had slavery. This is why we had the unit 731 in Japan, because the Japanese looked at every other Asian as inferior. They were the race. They were the master Asian race. What'd you say?
Nanking, would that be?
Nanking was Unit 731.
Yeah.
Okay.
Irish
Once
Chang,
again, here's a free plug for the book.
That's a book.
The Rape of Nanking. Hopefully we don't get booted because I said that word.
Oh
I only just say it that one time. It's the title of the book. It's the title of the book, and I don't know if YouTube will like auto
Don't say it again.
But no, I'm not gonna. But that's the title of the book. So if you missed it, go back, listen again. Fascinating book. Really sad.
Yeah, really, really, really sad. I think you'd have less opposition, to be honest. I think there is more groupthink in our society than we've ever seen. There's more collective groupthink. There's more groups. People aren't built nowadays off of intelligence of self. They need a group. I think high school is a prime example of this. And cliques are horrible. We all went through high school. We know there's cliques in high school. We all were in our selective cliques, and we were treated our selective ways until some of us had to do things we didn't want to do. But either you take it or you stand up for yourself at one point. You know, it's going to happen. But just because people are more opinionated doesn't mean that in the face of something that they don't understand, they'll buckle. And I think in this day and age, more people, if on a groupthink scale, were conducting this experiment, I think they would do it. Because it doesn't have to be shock therapy. You could say, okay, this is one of the political dissidents or somebody that isn't your political side. Go ahead and shock them, whether it be right or left. Because both sides, whether anybody wants to believe it or not, the Democrats and the Republicans are weaponized. They are a weaponized group, and they are cults, and they have their cult members, and their cult members. And I will explain this to you by saying this phrase: vote blue no matter who. That is a cult phrased mentality. It's meant to not think. You're not meant to step out of line. So all you need to do today to do this is just say, your other side doesn't believe like us. You're rallying a bunch of people. We saw it with the riots that happened in 2020. We saw what happened. You know, it was very much a weaponized thing. It was very weaponized.
One of the key phrases right now that I have to almost roll my eyes every time I hear it, because both sides are using it now. To preserve our democracy.
Preserve our democracy.
You say that, like, if you go out and interview people and you start off with your first question, what do you think we need to do to preserve our democracy? It's going to instantly push most of them into wherever their party position is. If they have one, they're instantly going to go to those talking points. They're not going to like think through what you ask them. They're just going to think, oh, preserve our democracy. We got to do this. We have to do this. We have to do this, because that's what they've been told.
But the threats of the threats of violence only work on an autonomous level, on a single person level. All I need to do is get 5 of my friends together and we can go beat somebody up because I'll just say that they don't like us, and we can go beat them up, and they're going to follow me, and that's how it works. That's how our election system in the United States works. Whether people want to believe it or not, it is one of the biggest experiments that's ever existed. If we actually think about it, because we do live in a constitutional republic, we don't live in a democracy. That's a common misconception. We do live in a constitutional republic, but both sides are weaponized, 100%. And it is
Social
an
engineering.
experiment. It's social engineering. It's an experiment. It's an experiment to see if you will dislike that person because of their political choice or their political person. We've seen it. We've seen it more in the past 10 years because growing up, we didn't see it. But then again, people didn't have social media. You couldn't get away with running your mouth in public because somebody would check you instantaneously.
Late 90s, early 2000s was kind of cool. I mean, you had your random like racist jerk people. You had those kind of people running around, but like
you had your
most of the time people were just like, oh, that's done. That's dumb. Like, let's just hang out. Let's do stuff. Like, people mingled the cultures.
Yeah.
And just once the 2000s really started to roll, just the mood changed.
So I would like to. Oh, go ahead.
People will not. Most people, most Americans, and this is why I think this experiment would showcase even more than the last one did, is because people, they get set on a political party and they stand with that political party, and they will not. Most people will not budge from that because they think that their beliefs align with theirs when really it doesn't, as we've seen before, as we've seen with the two folks we have running at current. We see that both sides are weaponized, but this is all an experiment, is what this really is. It's one of the biggest experiments there is. It's the same. It's always been the same, except now it's more, 90s. Like, you're right. In the 90s, Clinton and I think Bush ran. It was Clinton and somebody. And
it was because 92 was the election for Clinton and George W. I think.
The thing is that people didn't like the other person. I mean, they didn't like, but they didn't dislike the people who voted for him because people didn't talk about who they voted for. I want to go back to that era of I don't care who you vote for. You don't have to tell me. I don't need to know. It's none of my business. Two things I've always said that are none of my business: who you vote for and who you worship. It's none of my concern. It's none of my business. Hey, I wanted Ross Perot to win too. That should have signaled a lot of things for people in this.
That was the last time we had a third-party candidate that actually was. I mean, he was kind of a goofball, and I'm not saying that to invalidate how you felt about him. I think he was refreshing because it wasn't stuffy like Washington people.
Yeah.
You had Bush Sr., who was the war hawk. You had Clinton, who was kind of like, hey, smoking up and things. And then we all know how that ended up. But then, we had Ross Perot, and that was the last time a third-party candidate was relevant. After that, you don't you hear about Ron Paul and you hear about Bernie Sanders.
I wish he would have won. If Ron Paul would have won, we wouldn't have been in the state that we were in from 2008 up to now. If Ron Paul would have won and taken that election, we would not have been in the mess we are in.
He was the next one after Ross Perot to make a serious effort and to really galvanize people. Like, people talk about Bernie, but he had a really fringe group. Because he couldn't seriously come up with ways to push through what he was doing.
You can't sit over here and tell me you won't reform for the poor, this, that, and the third. You're owning 3 houses, bro. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I don't buy into your nonsense. And he offered no real solutions. The man just got up there. He liked to hear himself talk.
We're going to pay for this, and we're going to pay for this. We're going to pay for this, with no way to figure out how to pay for it. Whereas before you had Ross Perot, he was a billionaire. He was like, he had
oil money.
I know
he didn't have to take lobbyists.
We got to do this. We have to do this, and this is how you fund things. Ron Paul wanted to do things grassroots. He wanted to, reform the system so that it could pay for things. After that, though, nobody else has come close. We've had different people that have propped up. Like, right now, we got RFK Jr.
Afro Man,
and he doesn't have a chance.
No,
I know.
no. This is gonna
know.
be this election's gonna be a showdown. We all know who's gonna win. I don't even know why we're
Yep.
we're goofing
Yeah, we
around at
didn't.
this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was just a
we don't
good
have to say it.
illustrative
We
point
know.
of how far things have kind of coalesced into just
Yes.
the two parties rather than any
Yes.
third viable option, because
And
there hasn't
really,
been a third viable option since then.
they act as one. Whether people want
Yeah.
to admit or not, they all act as one party. They all want money. They all want to take money that doesn't belong to them, that never belonged to them, that doesn't. That,
It's a popularity contest.
they won't take it from their friends, but they'll darn sure take it from us. But that's that's going a little bit too off topic. But I stand on what I say. That is the biggest experiment is voting in a two-party system and then weaponizing it and seeing, okay, are you going to hate those people that vote for that candidate? Yeah. Are you going to hate for those people that vote for that candidate? Yeah. Let's hate each other. And they see, and then, I mean, because anybody with half a brain can see how it's weaponized. You hear this newspeak, like you said before, preserving democracy, preserving our democracy, preserving our democracy. You keep saying it enough, it gets in people's ears. People are like, yeah, we need to do that.
We have to preserve our democracy, and then you've conditioned them, which is part of the
psychological
experiment.
conditioning.
Psychological conditioning. And then you show ads. Hope. That was another one. Hope continuously. And it had melded the population's brains into supporting candidates that were nothing but warmongers, to be bluntly honest.
That was another one.
Change was another one.
Change, and then nothing really changed.
It did in the Middle East.
Well, yeah.
Which is why you have the problems
worse.
you do there.
That's a lot worse.
Exactly why you have the problems you do there. But that's just the U.S. invading in places that we don't belong once again, and putting our nose into places we don't belong again. And I can't just sit idly by and not say something. I will stand on my convictions, and if I have to lose friends and family because of my convictions, I'd rather do that than be a coward. That's all there is to it. Getting back to the original point and process of what we're talking about on tonight's episode of Political Talk.
Now that we've wasted like 10 minutes of the hour just on this rampage.
We went on quite a diatribe, but I think that's cathartic. I think the diatribe was cathartic. See, I'm getting unfollowed.
Oh, no.
That's all right. Unfollowing.
Somehow I doubt that.
We didn't even get to talk about the racist
Somehow I'm
experiment.
Doubtful. I did want to say actually one more about Chester M. Southam, who from the 1950s to the 1960s, because I at least wanted to get one medical experimentation in on this one.
I can pitch it in a minute.
He was an immunologist and an oncologist, and he injected hella cancer cells, HELA, not he injected hella cancer cells, bro. What's up? Gnarly. But he injected HELA cancer cells in healthy people, cancer patients, and inmates incarcerated in the Ohio State Penitentiary, located in Columbus, Ohio, not the Minnesota Reformatory that was once OSP. What's up, Gnarly? What's good with you, man? But here's the thing about this. He 100% did this without people knowing. He did not tell these people a lick of what he was doing. So, and in one case, for real on God, that's busting, as the kids say. I don't know why. Bussing in the skibbity toilet.
How did I know that and you didn't?
That's a movie now.
I know. I knew bussing. I just want to say busting
sorry.
because yeah, it's a Michael Bay movie. The skibbity toilet is going to be why are we
there's gonna
surprised?
be explosions, I guess?
Not to the point. Exploding toilets. All right, get it together.
Let's move on. Let's roll that back.
Back to the topic.
Let's roll it back.
Edit that post.
Edit that post. But so here's the issue. So he 100% did this without patient acknowledgement. So they had no idea what was going to happen here. All they knew is that they were getting injected with something healthy, something to kind of fix the situation that was going on. Well, in one case, one of the patient's cells metastasized to her lymph nodes. So he fucked up. He has fucked up. Now he's messed up. He has messed up now.
I like that self-censor there.
Yeah, I had to.
That was great.
I don't want to get on my diatribe and start cussing up a storm. We will 100% be banned. But in 1963, Avir Kagan, David Leichter, and Perry Fursko reports him to the regents of the University of the State of New York, and they find him guilty of fraud, deceit, and unprofessional conduct. Guess what happens because of it? Just go ahead, guys. Give me some of your guesstimates, your bestimates.
Bankruptcy for a business.
Now, what do you think happens to him?
Oh, he dies.
Oh, that's okay.
He gets recruited by the government.
To be
No.
more specific,
he just gets placed on probation for 1 year.
That's way off. I was way
That's
off.
it. 1 year of probation, injecting people
no.
with hella cancer cells. Hella cancer cells, bro.
Oh no.
HELA cancer cells. Like healthy cells. These are healthy cells that are cancered that they put into people.
And by the time that your body realizes there's an invader, it's already too late.
Because now it's super active. Yes. Your body is destroying itself from the inside, basically. So it didn't say if the woman had died or not, but the simple fact that the cells metastasized to her lymph nodes should have been a key factor in him maybe getting a little bit worse than a year of probation. He should have been stripped of any sort of medical license. But that's the thing about human experimentation is if it's useful and it's viable, people don't sweep it under the rug, as we saw with Nancy.
Allows it.
I was about to say Nancy Germany.
Of course, that there are exceptions to that because a certain technology company, and this is another one that I want to kind of be careful what I say around YouTube because they'll consider
I know
conspiracy.
You're talking about.
A certain very large technology corporation. Went to Africa.
Yes, I was going to
talk about very poor sections of Africa to test out inoculations. That's the word I'm going to use, inoculations, because I think that's safe. But they were not really needed. No. Nobody in the area was actually prone to what the inoculation was supposed to be for. And it ended up making a lot of people sick. A lot of people pass away, a lot of them younger people, possibly children. And the corporation I think they paid the individual people in the study various bits of money. And then that was it. Nothing happened. It did I guess there were some attempts to go through the courts with it, but everything was basically disappeared. Of course. So you definitely still get that kind of thing. And you could say on one hand, people haven't learned, but on the other hand, you could say, oh, they did learn because they're going to keep doing it because they know they can get away with it. We
didn't get into the Tuskegee experiment.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
the Tuskegee
experiment.
Sounds a lot like it.
Yeah. That's it, and because they injected them with syphilis.
Yeah.
One of the biggest atrocities of the United States.
Refused to give them the cure, right?
Yeah. So they died. People died from that. But once again, that was in a time where they looked at people that were a different skin color than them and didn't think they were human.
Yeah, it was racism. Because they felt, I can go into that a bit more. They felt that the white people, it attacked their mind more because they were healthier, and then they felt that the other people, it attacked them their body more because they were more physically strong.
Well, there was that was a big thing too, way back when, that they thought that because you had white skin, you had a bigger brain.
Yeah,
which doesn't really fit the narrative very much. No, not at all. That was proven to be false, which should be obvious. And you're right. People have survived because of experimenting. Think of the person
That's the basis of medicine.
Think of the first person who ate the mushroom.
That's alchemy in a nutshell.
You either were tripping, you either were full, or you were dead. And there was no in between. And that's how we learned what was poisonous and what wasn't poisonous. Fascinating aspect. I'm not going to be the one that does it. I need one of those guidebooks that tell me what mushrooms I can eat. But I don't go out foraging in the woods.
Wasteland Survival Guide. That's what you need.
I live in Ohio. We don't have to go out. I can forage at the grocery store. I can just walk into the grocery store and forage. And I'm like, oh, look, these mushrooms are edible. They're right here. I'm going to get these. I'm not going to get the ones out in the forest. Some people love to go out in the forest and forage. Yeah. See, Apple doesn't need a guidebook. She could just traipse off into the woods. I'm going to rely on her when the world ends because I don't know anything. Listen, if the world ends, I want to go with it. I don't want to be stuck here trying to survive, foraging for berries and having to fish and hunt. Because it's not me. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not the hunter. I mean, I would, if I had to, obviously I would. But damn, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm going to just go to the store and buy it. I just want to go to the store. I want to go to my frozen freezer section, get what I need, or go to a butcher shop and get what I need. I don't want to do it at all. I don't want to deuce it. I don't want to do that. I want to do it. I want to do it, not deuce it. Deuces. So yes, if the world ends, do not count me as one of those people. No, Rick Grimes. No, mushrooms got a lot of little bugs, got to soak. No, if I have to do anything of that nature, listen, the only time I want to work for my food is when I'm cracking up some crab legs. That's it. And crab legs are amazing, but you don't get a lot of food for the amount of work that you have to put in to get to the food.
What about the peanuts? Do they have to be cracked already?
Yes.
Like out of the
shell? I don't
shell?
got time for that.
All you got to do.
What is this, a baseball game? I don't got time for that.
Pistachios.
All you got to do is build up your upper body strength enough that you can pack your grill on your back like a backpack and grill everything to the point that it all tastes like grilled food and nothing else.
I'm okay with this. I love
because you can use wood to put in the grill. You don't have to even find you can just use the wood in there, and that's all the work you got to do.
Oh, you can eat popcorn shrimp. I'm not eating sea bugs. I refuse to eat sea bugs. I bit into one time and it tasted like a dirty lake, and I will never eat shrimp again. I can't.
Oh, you just got a bad shrimp. Some of them taste like that.
That's all it takes. All it takes is one bad shrimp,
all it takes.
And that's it. And it's hasta luego.
Oh, no. I like shrimp. Be nice to shrimp. They're little already. They get enough. They get bullied enough for their size. They don't have to be bullied for their taste too. Why?
Listen.
Leave the shrimp alone.
Listen.
I think they've turned on us.
Listen, man.
They've turned on us.
I just straight up eat Uncrustables. I don't got time for all that nonsense. You know what? It's funny you will say that, but I love peanut butter and jelly. So like, I ate some sushi recently with shrimp on top, and it was tolerable. Yeah, but sushi's different. Like fried tempura, okay, we can go that route if I have to. I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, I don't want to eat fried tempura. Of course, I want some fried tempura. Doesn't mean I want to sit there and
sushi.
No, but fried tempura, they do make shrimp fried tempura.
Yeah,
and it's fantastic. I don't like shrimp, but listen, pack it full of grease. Pack it full of grease. Bread it and full of MSG.
MSG
I want so much MSG in there. I want so much MSG in there that Uncle Roger shows up and goes, "For you." That's what I want. That's how much I want. I want all the MSG in there.
Uncle Robert.
Uncle Robert's right. I've been into a steak bug once. Oh
no, thank you.
Oh,
that sounds terrible.
You ever get them on your hand? It smells like raw hamburger meat.
I think that's a good point to end the show.
Yeah, I think so. I got to go throw up in my skibidi toilet, as the kids say.
Gosh.
As the Michael Bays say now. Yeah, anyways, guys, thank you for checking out another episode of This Uncanny Earth, your favorite paranormal podcast with all the great stuff you love inside of it. Next week, we'll be having a guest, and this guest is a long time coming. So when he is on, you will, it's nothing compared to the flavor. I'd cabbage, that's okay, buddy. You can always rewatch the episode on YouTube. It will be available as soon as this show ends. Rewatch it. Please, like Scruffy was saying earlier in his chat, please go to our YouTube channel. I'm going to post it in the chat. Please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. It really does help. Like the videos. It really does help us. It helps us get our name out there. It helps us, branch out to a wider audience. It really does help us. So please please, please, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate each and every one of you that came through today. Thank you to Apple. Thank you to Gnarly. Thank you to James. Thank you to Odd Cabbage. Even if you showed up late, you still showed up. Thank you to Mammoth. Thank you to Hoff. Thank you to Deadpool, who is just really Steven at this point, but I don't know what's going on. Yeah, that's right. I exposed it.
Well, I don't know how to text in the chat anymore because every time I type a message, it sends it out as everybody.
Yeah, because
So-
now that you're part of
Yeah.
the admin team.
Yeah.
then
Now that you're an admin, Steven, get it together.
Yeah,
all
that's
right?
the only way I can chat now is by chatting on the Twitch as Deadpool.
Well, if you want to chat there too, you can. It just would show up as us. It's fine.
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, thank you. Please, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And we appreciate it. And as always, from me to you, why be boring when you can be uncanny? We will see you amazing people next week for another episode of this Uncanny Earth. Until next time, peace.